It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Monday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. It's been a very eventful weekend. But it's not good. Too much violence. And our featured story tonight, we're talking all about the terror attack in Australia, which I'm sure you've heard about at Bondi Beach. And allegedly, this is an ISIS attack. This is the narrative. Earlier in the weekend, there was a massive shooting. 2 gunmen, a father and a son, both Muslim, shooting at, I believe it was a Hanukkah party on the beach, and they killed over a dozen people. Absolutely horrific and brutal and tragic. But of course, the question is, who are the perpetrators? And that's a very, I would say, curious little question, because the shooters appear to have been trained. They look like professionals. They use bolt-action rifles, shooting and chambering a lot of rounds in a short amount of time. Question is, who is responsible? These are Muslims, but things are not always as they seem. What is the motivation? Is there a state sponsor? Are they part of a group? What is their real motivation? What is their ideology? That, of course, became the immediate question. And what's notable about the attack is how quickly they're now trying to spin the narrative. And the first thing that I heard, actually, from the British Telegraph is that these 2 shooters are from Iran, that they are backed by Iran in some way, shape, or form. That was the first narrative that came out. Now, the Prime Minister of Australia comes out and says, actually, they're affiliated with ISIS. It's an ISIS cell. They had been known to law enforcement going back 6 years because of their connections to ISIS. And they say that that was the motivation. Well, those are 2 completely different things. Iran is a Shiite country. ISIS is a Sunni group. Iran backs a lot of radical groups like Hezbollah or the Houthis, but they have regional goals. They have regional, local political goals. The Wahhabists or Salafists, ISIS, the kind of ideology that is backed by Saudi Arabia, comes from Iran's rival, and that does tend to have these more far-reaching goals, but also has been funded and armed and trained and equipped by the United States and Israel in the past. These are 2 completely different things, and yet the mainstream media is saying that they are both true at the same time. Clearly, it has a geopolitical significance that various countries want to capitalize on. So we'll talk all about that. We'll get into the shooting. We're also going to talk tonight about Trump's post about Robert Reiner, the actor. Him and his wife were murdered at their home, apparently by their son, Nick, who is a drug dealer, or I should say a drug addict. I imagine it has something to do with that. He was high. And I don't know that that's extremely relevant for a news show. It's, of course, another tragedy, another horrific act of violence, horrific murder. The political angle is that the President of the United States weighed in about the murder on Truth Social. And Trump came out today and said that he never liked Robert Reiner because he talked about Russiagate and all this other stuff, and it seemed like he was actually happy that the guy died. And it's a little bit funny that he said this, because earlier in the day, Jack Posobiec went out on Twitter and said, well, the difference between the right and the left is that when Charlie Kirk got shot, the right wing, or rather the left wing, celebrated. When this liberal Hollywood actor gets murdered by his son, MAGA is offering condolences. And then Trump comes out an hour later and says, I never liked him. He was killed because he sucked. He was killed because he was annoying. And I saw a lot of Trump supporters defend this. Everybody was outraged. for the most part, but some of the president's strongest supporters defended it. They said, well, we are in a war. Charlie Kirk got shot. Trump got shot. The left celebrated, they say. So if we mourn our enemies, then we're just not serious. And I have a rebuttal to that. We'll get into it. We'll talk about all that stuff tonight. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. It's a little bit late tonight, but I was traveling all day. I'm a little out of it. I'm a little jet lagged. Had a long day. And I was out of town this weekend. I was at I was supposed to be at the NYYRC Gala, the New York Young Republican Club Gala, their annual meeting. And I was disinvited at the last minute. I got an invitation, then they took the invitation away. That's where I was. And this has been going on for years. I'm friends with a lot of people in NYYRC. Every year they say, we're going to get you in. This is a year. We're finally going to let you come in. And I got invited to go this year. I even actually got offered a speaking slot. That was like an idea. Then they told me, no. Well, you can't speak, but you can attend the gala and you could go to the after party. For those that don't know, New York Young Republican Club, I guess it's the longest running Republican club in the country. And they're headquartered in New York City. They've been around for a while. Gavin Wax used to be the president. And they do this annual conference, this annual summit, and usually some major, minor Republican figures are there. So I was going to go out for the gala. I'm all ready to go. And then they send me at the last minute a disinvitation. They say, actually, you can't come because the sponsors are threatening to pull out and the board is threatening to resign. You can't go. I said, fuck it. I'm going anyway. So I met up with Sneeko. I had some other stuff to do. Met up with Basil and Benny from the Basil and Benny show. Great show. Check it out. I hung out with a bunch of different people, friends of mine in New York. And they do the gala on Saturday. I don't get to go. I'm not allowed in. I pull up to the after party. People are inviting me. Everybody's there. They kick me out of the after party. I pull up. Everybody's already a fan. Hey, can I get a picture? Hey, sign my whatever. They don't let me in the party. And as always, they go, well, look, you got to understand, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. They told me if I went to the gala that I would be the center of attention. They said they don't want the negative attention. They said that if I attended, I would steal the spotlight and it would be unfair to everybody. So that's a load of bullshit. And you know what else? Instead of me, they had Jack Posobiec as the keynote speaker. And I don't know how I feel about Jack. I don't really know what he's about. But he goes up to do the keynote address. He's wearing an American flag bow tie, holding up a rosary, and he posts some stupid nonsense on Twitter. He goes, we're going to retake Constantinople. And you know what that is? They're trying to bite my style. They're trying to bite my whole flow. I became the #1 political streamer this year, and I have the youth, and I'm viral, I have the young men, and they go, well, we have Nick Fuentes at home. I can't even go. They won't even let me in the building. I'm still the nigger of the world. We could maybe get you in through the back door, but don't tell anybody. That's how they treat me, like it's Jim Crow. Drink out of the other water fountain. Use the back entrance. And because I say the N-word, that's why. Because I'm anti-Israel, whatever. They don't let me go. And everybody, that's what they want. They want edgelord. They want Israel critical. They want Jewish critical. They want Catholic. They want racist. You can't have any of that, though, because Jews run the NYYRC because they run New York. So they go, oh, you like Nick Fuentes? Well, we have Nick Fuentes at home. He's a 45-year-old former intelligence officer. He's got an American flag bow tie, and he's going to talk about Constantinople and Francisco Franco. He's a base, trad, Catholic nationalist. And nobody's even watching the speech. Nobody's even paying attention. Because bro has no motion. Bro has no fans. Because at the end of the day, and here's why I bring this up. Here's why it's kind of funny. After everything that's happened this year, Tucker, Piers, everything, the whole generational run, my popularity on Instagram Reels, on TikTok, everybody is doing these articles and videos and conversations. Why is Nick Fuentes so popular? What's his secret? How does he do it? Why do they like this asshole? Why do they like this freak? And what's funny is in all these articles from like Rob Reiner and Ross Douthat and even Brett Weinstein, he did a video about it with Sargon of Akkad yesterday, Tucker Carlson. Whenever these people explain my appeal, they always fall back on, well, it's these young white men and they have been attacked and ignored and the economy sucks and we need to bring them in from out of the cold and we need to take care of them. They have been abused and now they want to support this guy who doesn't want to be a part of the club, who doesn't want to be a part of the system. And so they say, how can we get the young men back on side? Well, we'll kind of like pretend to be like Nick. We'll gesture towards being a muscular Christian. We'll gesture towards being pro-white or pro-Western or whatever. We'll gesture towards patriotism. Maybe we'll be a little racist. And it's like, look, you can do the talking points. You can put on the American flag. You can hold up the rosary. That's not what makes Nick Fuentes Nick Fuentes. That's not what makes this show this show. They think that they can put it on like it's another costume because that's what they do. That's what these Republicans do. They put on a different outfit. They put on a different costume. Today we're LARPing as Nick Fuentes, and it's all just it's all gimmicks. It's all a little bag of tricks. Holding up a rosary, draping ourselves in the flag. We're going to say Fran and Old Troon and Anon and, you know, and we're going to be just as good. We have Nick Fuentes at home. But what they don't have is they're not real human beings. None of these people are real humans. And what I mean by that is none of them give a fuck about you, about the country, about our race. They don't even read. They don't even care about politics. These people that go to the New York Young Republican Club, and even for that matter, the people in this administration in D.C., I can tell you this because I know them. I can tell you this because I've known them for a long time, and it's always been tense. There's always been a tension between me and them. And what I will tell you about the people in New York and the people in the influencer space and the people in DC, in the admin, the people in the think tanks, they're not even people. They come up to you, they shake your hand, they say, so what do you do? What's your position? What's your title? And that's really what it's all about for them at all these places. And I'm not even just singling out, there's some good people in NYYRC, but it's these political creatures that call themselves Republicans. They don't have ideas. They don't think about ideas. They don't think about the country. They don't care about the country. They don't care that a race is being genocided. They don't care that standards have collapsed. They don't care that it's a big joke. For them, it's all about the climb. One rung after another. It's just about the climb. One title on to the next. What can you do for me? What's the job? So that they can, I don't know, post an Instagram story about it, so they can show off, so they can post it on their LinkedIn. That's literally all it is. And everybody knows that, and that's the difference. The difference is that I care about the country. That's why I talk about white genocide, because that is what is happening in the country. Nothing else matters. People talk about housing prices. Dude, fuck housing prices. Our race is dying. Okay? I don't care if houses cost $1 million. It would be worth it if we lived in a white country. We are living in Africa. We are living in Mexico. We are living in a Middle Eastern bazaar. We are living in India. And people go, gee, I think it's the housing prices. I think it's because the Thanksgiving turkey is up 10%. That's not the problem. People say it's because of the housing prices and Gamergate or whatever. We need libs of TikTok in the White House. We need libs of TikTok on steroids. Dude, our race is being genocided. It's over. White people are being shamed and guilted. We are being beat up and murdered in the streets. They want us gone. They want us to kill ourselves because we did the Holocaust. They're telling us in school, you're racist. You did the Holocaust. You're a piece of shit. Now you're going to commit suicide as a civilization. And someone like myself gets up and says, you know what? Fuck you. Someone like me gets up and says, you know what, Jew, go back to Israel with that attitude. You know what, with these black people, why don't you pull up your pants, learn how to act with some decorum, put the phone off of speakerphone. We're coming up to these people and saying, hey, this is our country. Everybody's going to behave now. And they wonder why people like me. They wonder why people support me. They wonder why they go for me and they don't go for, you know, whatever that was at the convention, whatever is going on in MAGA world where they want 50-year mortgages and they want to bomb Iran and they want to have H-1B visas and the Epstein files are going to be buried under the White House. They wonder why. They say, gee, it must be housing. Gee, it must be because the left bullied white people. And another thing. Here's another thing I'll say. This, and by the way, this is it. This is it. This is so telling. So, as you know, the biggest chapter maybe of the generational run was the Tucker Carlson interview. We had a fine interview, but there's something weird going on. Because Tucker calls me on the phone and tells me, well, I wanted to apologize for getting angry with you, but you came after my dad, and that's a big problem and whatever. We do this show. He's nothing but nice. He's acting like my best good friend. You know, a friend to all is a friend to none. He's everybody's best good friend. Oh, you know, so warm, so affable. We do the show. Ever since the show, all this guy does is call me an anti-Semite. He says I'm a hater. He acts like my popularity is a problem to be solved. It's a symptom of a disease that must be cured. Well, this one takes the cake. This weekend, Tucker goes on the All In podcast with the Little Tech Bros led by David Sachs. And these guys are spooked up. Remember, this is when Trump went on this podcast last year and said staple green cards to diplomas. Trump agreed to go on the podcast after David Sachs held a fundraiser at his house for Trump, and that was connected by J.D. Vance, okay? So these are the networks. It's very spooked up. And anyway, Tucker goes on All In this weekend, and it's so telling. He does this big monologue and says that white identity politics is evil. He finally says it. And by the way, I have been warning you about this for years. For years. When Tucker Carlson was talking about white grievance politics, I would always go back to, yes, Tucker will acknowledge the grievances of the white man, but what is his solution? Because he has repeatedly said for years that white identity politics is evil. Repeatedly. He has said adamantly that he is ideologically opposed to all identity politics. He says it frequently, explicitly, clearly. He says, I believe in universal principles. I believe in a colorblind meritocracy. I think that mass migration and replacement migration has nothing to do with race. It has to do with voting rights. He says that the problem in the country is not racial. It is ideological. It is cultural. It's anything other than that. And he has said that when somebody comes forward and supports white identity and says, I'm the white man, vote for me, Tucker said, I'm going to say F you because that's Nazism and that's evil. And I told you that for years. And people said to me, well, why are you bickering with him? Why are you creating drama? Why are you fighting? Don't we like Tucker? I said, pay attention, listen. Well, Tucker went mask off this weekend on All In, and he said it as clearly as I've ever heard him say it. He said that my problem is that I'm in favor of white identity politics, which he says is no different than any other identity politics. And he says it's evil. He says we need to steer people away from that. He says it's no different than when black people engage in it, when the left engages in it, and that's reprehensible and that's evil. He's against it. And you know what? There is some truth in that. White identity politics, it is exactly like all the other species of identity politics. And you know what I like to say? I like to call it taking your own side. Black people have been playing identity politics for 100 years. And that's why nobody says the N-word, because they're afraid, because blacks have cultural cachet, political cachet. When too many black people get arrested for committing crimes, they will burn down the city and get the police defunded. And now black people can do whatever they want. They're looking out for their own people. They're taking their own side. They recognize that they have distinct interests as a people. And that's why they're getting payments. That's why they're getting payments in Evanston. That's why they're getting reparations in certain municipalities. It is literally now a political policy to take money from white people and give it to black people because they take their own side. They don't vote for somebody that they consider to be racist. They are pro-black because they are black, and they know that as black people, they have distinct interests, and they fight for them. The same is true with Jews. Jews play identity politics as immigrants, as religious Jews, as ethnic Jews. They have distinct interests, they organize on the basis of identity, and they fight for them. They use their resources, their position to advocate for their own cause. And that is why you cannot offend them. That is why you cannot deny their genocide. Because they will punish you. They will use their power to punish you. That is identity politics. And now, in the big 2025, when white people are finally waking up and realizing we are a people too. We have a culture too. We are a race. We are an ethnicity. We are a people. We're a proud people. We're a noble people. We are one of the great races in the history of mankind. And we have a country. We have peoplehood and political interests, and we're going to fight for them. White people are starting to realize that they are the frog in the pot of boiling water. And the boiling water is called diversity. For 60 years, we have been the stupid people, welcoming in non-white immigrants who trample on our society, everything that we love. Civil and civic order, our holidays, our religion, our heroes, basic decency and decorum. They trample on all of it, and we have tolerated it out of altruism. Some sense of fairness. Well, we colonized them, now they can colonize us a little bit. We colonized them, now they can disrespect us a little bit. It's growing pains. White people are waking up and realizing, wait a second, we're the minority now. And now the non-whites are empowered in a democracy. When they outnumber us, they outpower us. In the election, they put their people in charge, and then they oppress us. People see what happened in South Africa. When they got rid of apartheid, when they got rid of the racist policies, did they get an egalitarian society where whites and blacks were living together on the basis of equality? No, they got revenge. The black people are taking revenge against the white minority. They have destroyed the society white people built for them, and they're taking revenge on the whites that remain. And that's exactly what's happening here. And as white people become aware and react to the situation, our once great cities are occupied by violent black people. Our once great country is occupied by foreigners and immigrants who hate us and hate our country. We don't even have sovereignty because our political system kneels to the Jews and Israel. And white people are finally reacting to this and saying, you know what? We like the way things were. We like European Christian society. We didn't even maybe realize that we were living in one, but now that we're slowly starting to not, now it's clocking. 25 years ago, people didn't know that we lived in a white Christian country because that's all we ever knew. We got used to it like a fish in water. Now that we live in diversity, people are starting to miss it, and people say we want it back. This is called a political consciousness, a racial consciousness. We're recognizing that we are a group distinct from the other. We're recognizing that we have interests, exclusive interests. Preserving the white majority in America is exclusive to the other groups. We're going to have to turn immigrants away, and it's going to be bad for them, but good for us. And just as we're developing a pro-white identity politics, in comes Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance and the rest of them to say, hey, all you white people, this is not the answer. Stand down, disarm yourselves, universal principles. Remember, universal principles. Colorblind meritocracy. We can't be like the left. They are deliberately disarming us. They are taking these political technologies away from us. White people were complacent, are becoming not complacent. They're becoming angry. And it is destabilizing society. That is true. That is a result of bringing in 60 million immigrants in 30 years. You have destabilized society. You brought in too many foreigners. The white people are getting pissed off. They're identifying as white, and they're saying, you know what? We liked it better the way it was before. And we're going to fight for it. And now comes Tucker to say, everybody calm down. Not so fast. We can all get along based on universal principles. Well, to that, Tucker, I say, the Jews, the blacks, and the immigrants first. You want to play by universal principles? You want a level playing field? You want to drop your ethnic and tribal allegiances? You first. Because it didn't start this way. It started in the 60s with stupid white people getting up and saying, you know, it's awfully racist for us to not share a bus with these people. And while we're at it, why are we only letting white people come into the country? And then the rich in the 1990s said, well, we need the labor. We need the farm workers. We need the tech workers. Bring them in. We were the stupid people. And they have brought identity politics here. They're fighting on their behalf. And now we have to stand down? We haven't even gotten started. You want to live in a country with universal principles? Take that message to Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. Take that message to the NAACP where it belongs. Take that message to the Chamber of Commerce and the La Raza Legal Organization. Take that message somewhere else because we don't need that. And I will say, I'm going to sound like a leftist here, it's not enough to not be anti-white. That's not enough. It's not enough to be anti-white. You have to be pro-white. You have to be, in the United States of America, pro-white. Yes. White people are under attack. White people are being genocided in the world. White people are being dispossessed. It's not enough to pump the brakes and say, let's stop and pause it right here. We need to be pro-white. We need to defend our people. We need to exist. We need to make sure that in 100 years, there will still be white people, that there will still be white countries with their distinct heritage and culture and languages and their political power and sovereignty intact. You must be in favor of this or you are our enemy. Period. End of story. So don't come around with this bullshit where Tucker comes on and says, I love Israel, I'm pro-Israel, but I don't like this identity politics for white people. Take your fucking badge and shove it up your I'm so sick of it. You attacked my father. Your dad ran Voice of America, and who the fuck even are you, pal? It's still white up in Maine where you live. Not down in Portland, not where we are, not in Chicago, not in California, not in New York. When you are a multi-millionaire flying between your residences on your private jet in the middle of nowhere, Maine, in the middle of nowhere, Florida, you know, you can afford to be in favor of those universal principles. Go try that in any other city. See how far that gets you. Come to Chicago. Try that out in Garfield Park. Try that out in Pilsen. See how far that gets you. Universal principles. Fuck you. White people need to get stronger. White people need to get a lot stronger. That's what we need to do. Because we are dying, and no one seems to be aware of that. People are playing games, telling white people, go back to bed, go back to sleep. Telling white people, hey, we're going to bring the cost of housing down. Housing? How about our country? Where are the houses located? That's what drives me crazy. And there's sort of a rich irony in there. This is not about housing. This is about our home. There's a difference. That's always the answer. Why did Mamdani get elected? Why did Trump get elected? Why are people angry? Oh, it must be because of inflation. It's because lumber and copper and appliances and chips are making housing expensive and insurance is going up. It's not about housing. It's about our home. It's about whether the country feels like home, whether it resembles the country it used to be when our parents grew up in it and our grandparents grew up in it. Do they still have Christmas? Do they still celebrate the Mass? Do they still obey God and Jesus Christ? What kind of society are you living in? They want cheap houses, but it's going to be a boarding house for the world's poor. As long as it's governed by these universal principles, you can spare us the speech about blood guilt. I don't want to hear that ever again. I'm just against blood guilt. I'm just against blood guilt. Tell that to President Stacey Abrams when she's putting us in gas chambers for being white. Give them your little cute speech about blood guilt. Try that when you have no power. Try that when you have no political power because white people didn't organize. Say, President Mamdani, President Abrams, but I'm against blood guilt. But I said I'm against blood guilt. I think that's evil when anyone does it. They're going to say, yeah, white boy. And then they're going to shove you into an oven and kill you like they're doing in South Africa. They're going to cut your head off after they your wife in front of you, and you're talking about, well, I don't believe in blood guilt, and I think we need universal principles. You sound like National Review. What's the difference? Universal principles. Okay, what universe? They're living in a different universe. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about, because this is now, you realize now that we are in the stage where they try to co-opt me. That's where we are. They realize that I won the battle of ideas. I won the hearts and minds. I have an army. And now they're oscillating between, they want to get me to play nice, and they're trying to get me to tone down the message, trying to co-opt me. Hey, pal. Hey, buddy. What's wrong? What went wrong with you? And then they want to deliver Nick Fuentes light like it's an alien technology. They're going to reverse engineer it and say, look, we could do that. We could do an American bow tie. I would never do an American flag bow tie. I would never do an American flag bow tie, pal. So that's where we are with all that. And you guys just got to understand, it's like, it's groypers or it's nothing, okay? We're not settling for anything less. We're not going to hear some bald wife guy, girl dad lecture me about, I know you kids want to be a part of something bigger than yourselves and you're mad about the Democrats. The Democrats. That's who visited the destruction upon the country. The Democrats, sure. Let's call it that. Is that what they're calling them now? That's like with when black people, they call them the youths, joggers, whatever. Oh, the Democrats. Is that what we're calling them now? Secular humanists with Jewish last names. Remember that one? Anyway, so that's that. This is how it is. We are at war. We are at war. And this is what we're about. We are about sovereignty over our civilization. Who are we as a civilization? What is America? What is Europe? It is the people, a people. And don't give me this stuff about, it is about European people. It is about Christendom. It is being taken from us by Jewish oligarchs, flooding the zone with these third world immigrants. It's what it is. It's what it is, and everyone knows it. And that's why you can't talk about it, because if you talk about it, then you're Hitler. And then we're back to Piers Morgan, you know. Anyway, so that's that. But I do want to move on. I want to get into our news for the night. That's where I was this weekend. Had a lot of fun, though, in spite of it. I run around with security now because everyone wants to kill me. But I don't even need it, because I could go to LA, I could go to New York, I could walk the streets of Chicago, and I don't even really need security because the people are with me. I go to UCLA. I was in LA not too long ago. I'm on campus, and people are taking pictures of me. I'm walking down the streets of New York City. People are taking pictures of me. Chicago, anywhere I go. I don't even need it because the people are with me. Are they with Ben Shapiro? Can Ben Shapiro walk the streets of any major American city without getting punched in the face or heckled? I don't think so. So anyway, that's where I was. Good stuff. Good times. It's not nice. You know, you should invite me to your party next time. I want to party too. I like to party. Well, I hate parties, but you know, I like to be invited. It would have been nice to have been invited. I don't know that I don't really like parties, but I would like to be invited. It doesn't feel good to not even be invited. To be disinvited? What is even that? That's just rude. Anyway, I saw Lucian got fired. I don't know if that had something to do with me. I feel for him. But I got to hang out with Sneeko. We had a good time. Sneeko's like the homie. I know he's controversial with my audience, but he's a good guy. There's something nice. The world is so angry and so chaotic, and everybody is trying to kill me or they want something from me. And there's something nice about hanging out with an old friend that you've been through a lot together with, and you sit down for a nice dinner and you just fall into that flow. You know what I mean? I know people are going to say it sounds gay or whatever, but I really got to say, Sneeko's been a great friend. Because you got to understand, there's not a lot of people that I can trust. There's not a lot of people that I even know, that I even like. And I've known Sneeko for a long time now. We've been through a lot together. The whole Yay 24 thing, the cancellation, the red pill. And so it was really good to see him and just hang out. And it's like, nothing like a solid friend, you know? We've had our differences in the past, but he's the homie. So it was good to see Sneeko. Got to meet some other people that were, you know, around town and at the party. Got to meet a lot of you guys. I don't know if I saw any of you at the thing, but I took a lot of pictures all over the city. It was crazy, which is nice. But anyway, so that was my little trip. That was my little trip to the city. But we're going to move on. We're going to get into the show. Before we do, remember to check out the merch store, Fuentes.store. We have brand new designs. We have our America First hoodie. This is just one of many new designs. Fuentes.store. We have hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, pins, hats, flags. It's all there. Wang Half, Groyper, America First, all kinds of stuff. We are selling a lot of it. Get it in time for the holiday season. I think it might be a little late in the game for that, but, you know, maybe if you see somebody like later, you know, in the new year or something, check out the subscription website, americafirst.plus. $15 a month to get the video archive, $100 a month to get in the group chat. We're going to get into our news now. Our featured story is all about this ISIS attack in Australia. And we're going to be very responsible tonight because we don't have all the information, but I'm going to report about the information itself, what we know about it. Because as I always say on the show, you have the world and then you have the world as we perceive it through media. It's always like this. You have things as they're actually happening, but then you also have how these things are acted upon by media, by social media. And our big story tonight is about this terrorist attack in Australia. Two Muslims, I believe from Pakistan, a father and a son, carried out a shooting using bolt-action rifles, I think a shotgun too. at a beach in Australia, a very popular beach in Sydney, Australia, apparently during a Hanukkah celebration. So it was clearly targeting Jews, or so it seems as it stands right now. And before we get into any of the details, I want to just say in the first place, because Randy Fine, the congressman, called me out on this, I want to say in the first place, obviously this is a horrific tragedy. And we pray for the victims. We pray for justice, that the killers are put to death or severely punished. As you know, I am extremely critical of Jews as an organized group and critical of Israel too. That being said, I am a Catholic, and I believe that it is never the solution to take the life of innocent people. And honestly, it is rarely the case to take life at all. I am against that as a Catholic. I think that every death and any death is a tragedy, especially something like this. It's obviously a horrific thing. And I would also like to add, because of the peculiar nature of things these days, I also want to reiterate, we do not support violence. We do not sympathize with people that commit acts of violence, and we never have. Because you can see very clearly in this polarized and contentious political atmosphere, they are looking to either create crises like these, manufacture them, or take advantage of them for the purpose of political control. This is always how it goes. A terrorist attack happens, a mass shooting happens, a school shooting happens. And what do they do with it? Cynical political actors use this to round up their enemies, take the guns, shut down social media, whatever it is. And I want to say that for moral reasons as well as political reasons too, but moreover, moral reasons, we do not advocate for violence. We do not support violence, sympathize with violence. And this is where I draw a line with the left. Because it is true that a lot of these left-wing people, they actually do sympathize with these types of tactics. I saw, for example, one of these Palestinian kids. He's like a left-wing Palestinian guy. He went on Piers Morgan, and they were talking about the shooting in D.C., where some Muslims shot Jews leaving the embassy. And this Palestinian kid could not disavow the violence. He said, well, they're freedom fighters. And they say the same about Hamas. And I would say that I understand the political plight of the Palestinians, but as a Christian, I cannot condone, I cannot sanction, justify, or defend taking the life of innocent people, taking hostages, using those types of asymmetrical tactics, especially against civilians. I think it's evil and it's wicked, and I have to condemn it. So I'll say that at the outset. I saw on Twitter, Randy Fine, the representative from Florida, he got on Twitter and said, why has Nick Fuentes not said anything about the terror attack in Australia? His silence is deafening. And it's like, don't you have like a job? You're a sitting congressman. You're sitting around all weekend watching my Twitter account to see my take on it. I'm busy. I was a little busy. Like I'm the president of the United States. You know, reply hazy, ask again later. I'm busy right now, okay? So he's on my case. Well, he didn't say anything about it. I haven't tweeted in like 3 days. Anyway, so I'll say that at the outset, but I do want to get into the story. This is from the New York Times. We'll just go through some of the information here. It says, quote, the gunmen behind the mass shooting at a Jewish celebration in Sydney on Sunday were motivated by Islamic State ideology, according to Australia's Prime Minister. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the suspect appeared to have been radicalized by beliefs associated with the Islamic State militant group. Interesting. Investigators said that police had found 2 homemade Islamic State flags in the car that the suspects, a 50-year-old man and his 24-year-old son, drove to the site of Sunday's massacre. Police also recovered improvised explosive devices in the car. The father was a licensed holder of 6 firearms that were legally registered to him. The younger man was injured and remains in a coma. Officials said the son had come to the authorities' attention in 2019. As always, as is always the case. Just quick question. Have you ever heard of a mass shooter, a terrorist that was not previously known to the authorities for like 10 years? Why is it that all these people are always a known quantity, but somehow they just slip through the cracks? This person has been known to law enforcement for 6 years and apparently traveled to the Philippines, received military training, returned to the country, somehow acquired a firearm, which is very difficult to do in Australia, carries out the attack. They didn't know. I guess they were a little too focused on Joel Davis, huh? Australia's government was so busy locking up Thomas Sewell and Joel Davis and the White Australia Party. They were so busy dropping the hammer on people for criticizing Jews, for talking on Twitter, that they let ISIS slip through the cracks, because that's the focus in the country. Anyway, the article goes on. It says, the Australian news media has reported, citing unnamed police sources, that the 2019 investigation was over his links to a self-proclaimed Islamic State commander based in Sydney who was later prosecuted for plotting a terrorist attack. Mr. Albanese vowed on Monday to toughen Australia's already strict gun laws. It's the guns. It was the guns that did it. It goes on. It says his government is also facing criticism that his government did not do enough to address increasing violence against Jewish institutions and businesses in the country before Sunday's attack. So now we need to go after free speech even more. That's always the answer. So there's a few things I have to say about this attack. First of all, let's talk about how this attack played out. These two people clearly had military training. And I'm not a military expert, but the way that they were wielding these weapons, they didn't use semi-automatic rifles. They didn't use automatic rifles. They didn't use handguns. They used bolt-action rifles, which seems to be the most cumbersome, least efficient weapon to carry out an attack like this unless you had training. They appear to be professionals. Very high body count, a lot of casualties. So this is not an amateur operation. So that raises some red flags. What's more, there is this foreign involvement. I saw some rumors floating around on X that the father and son had received military training in the Philippines. They got trained by somebody to carry out an attack like this in the months leading up to the attack. And then the third thing, of course, is that they're known to law enforcement. And you got to say to yourself, who is providing the training? Who was aware of these people and when? And the question is, if this is truly homegrown terrorism, because I believe the son was born in Australia, if this is truly homegrown terrorism, or maybe you could say it another way, it's organic in some way, shape, or form. It is actually ISIS or some other Islamist radical sect or something like that. If that is the case, why was more not done to stop these people? How is it the case that you have large numbers of these South and Western Asians living in Australia? You have this ideological problem, which is Islamism, and it is spreading. It's all over the Sahel. It's in Somalia. It is on the rise in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And these people are known to law enforcement. So how exactly does that happen? Let's say this isn't a conspiracy. Let's say it isn't an operation. How do you have Muslim guys, they're ISIS sympathizers, they're in bed with an ISIS cell in Australia. How do you let them go to the Philippines, where you do have Islamic State there, get training, come back, get a firearm? How does it get to that point? They've been known for 6 years. And the answer is quite obvious. It is because in the United States, like in Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Europe, the government is at war with the white people. It's literally that simple. The government is so busy prosecuting a war against its own people, making sure that its own people don't stick up for themselves, don't engage in hate speech, don't organize, don't say the wrong words on Twitter. And this is the case across the board. They are letting these people roam the streets, whether it is an Islamist in Australia or wherever, or it is a black career criminal, a repeat offender, a 15-time felon that goes and stabs somebody or shoots somebody. Whatever it is, a grooming gang, somebody that's trying to stab little girls in Scotland. The governments in our own countries are so busy waging a war on their own people and the words they say and the way they choose to organize politically that they're not paying attention to these fanatics that are coming from Somalia, Pakistan, for that matter, that are coming from anywhere, that are coming from Latin America, that are coming from sub-Saharan Africa, whether they have a fanatical ideology or they're just from a primitive culture. That's if it's homegrown. On the other hand, let's talk a little bit about the media coverage of this. So it is alleged that they are Islamic State, but it's also been alleged that they're with Iran. The first thing that I saw before anybody knew anything is that this attack was carried out by an Iranian-backed group. This was from Israeli intelligence. This is from the Telegraph in the United Kingdom. This was reported in mainstream media sources. They said Israel believes that Iran was behind the attack. Well, why would Israel have an interest in saying that? Well, Israel is chomping at the bit to go to war with Iran again. And if you've been paying any attention at all, for the past several weeks, they have been talking about how Iran has rebuilt its missile arsenal. Iran has as many medium or longer range ballistic missiles today as they did before the war in June. And they've also been talking about how maybe Iran's nuclear program was not completely destroyed, and now Iran poses a threat to Israel again. So all of a sudden, once again, they're working it. They're working the angle. It was Iran, and now we need to bomb Iran. Shortly after that, there's reports that the Trump administration approves if Israel wants to retaliate against Iran for the shooting. Go figure. Sunni Muslims in Australia killed Jewish Australians, and Israel gets the green light to bomb Iran from America. And you want to tell me there's no such thing as global Jewry? There's no such thing as organized Jewry, world Jewry. They don't manipulate the situation. But they also said it was Islamic State. Like I said, Israel says it's Iran. Trump says, go ahead, punish Iran for this. Israel went ahead and violated the ceasefire with Gaza, opened up fire, killed 4 people. At the same time, however, the Australian government is saying, actually, it was ISIS. As I said at the top of the show, these are 2 completely different things. ISIS comes from Wahhabist, Salafist, Muslim theology, which comes from Saudi Arabia, okay? There are 2 major sects of Islam, Shiite and Sunni. Saudi Arabia is the head of Sunni Islam because the king of Saudi Arabia is the custodian of the 2 mosques. And there are some important imams in Egypt, and there are important imams elsewhere. But the Sunni world is on the other side of the Middle East. The Shiites, their religious leader is the Ayatollah of Iran. And if you don't know anything about the Middle East, Iran and Saudi Arabia have been in a Cold War for 50 years. So which is it? It can't be both. It can't be an Iranian-backed group, but also it's a ISIS affiliate, which again proceeds from some of these Saudi clerics that have been pushing this stuff for a long time, aided and enhanced by U.S. DOD support in the war in Syria, in the war in Iraq, Israeli assistance also, direct or indirect. It can't be both. And if they're claiming it's ISIS, here's my question. Where did ISIS come from all of a sudden? You ever notice this? ISIS took over the entire Middle East in 2013. After the Iraqi civil war broke out, after we toppled Saddam Hussein, you have these Sunni fundamentalists fighting the Shiites that were allied with Iran. The United States was in bed with these people, giving them weapons, training them, trying to calm tensions. This is what eventually became ISIS, and across the border, hopped over into Syria. And in 2013, ISIS controlled all this territory. They were cutting off everybody's heads, and they're launching lone wolf attacks using their cells located in Europe, the United States, elsewhere. Trump gets elected in 2016. By 2017, ISIS is defeated. So they had a pretty good 4 or 5 year run. And we really haven't heard anything since. Do you remember the 2016 election? You had the Bataclan massacre in Paris. You had the truck attack in Nice. You had the attack in San Bernardino. You might remember these things. These are very high-profile, visceral attacks we all remember happening in a very short span of time, such that it didn't sound crazy when Trump said we need a Muslim ban and we're going to war with ISIS. And that war ended in about 7-8 months after Trump got elected. By roughly September, it was basically over. All of a sudden, we start hearing about ISIS all over again. There are terrorist attacks in Iran. Mysteriously, terrorist attacks at the grave of Qasem Soleimani last year. They say that was ISIS that did it. When the United States withdrew from Afghanistan, we were so close to getting out clean. And then there was a terrorist attack at the base at Abbey Gate, remember? Who did they blame it on? ISIS-K, ISIS Khorasan in Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan. They were responsible for the attack, and they're on the march, and that's why we can never leave, remember? And now there's a terrorist attack in Australia. All of a sudden, ISIS is back. So they really only tend to show their faces. They really only tend to pop up when they're needed for a mission. When Israel wants to sabotage and provoke Iran without being blamed for it or without upsetting some kind of geopolitical balance, well, that was ISIS. When the CIA wants to keep us in Afghanistan indefinitely, but Biden is hell-bent on withdrawing us, there goes ISIS again. And when Israel is chomping at the bit to restart the war in Gaza, to restart the war with Iran, when they want to make a final decisive push for censorship on the internet of those that support Hamas or sympathize with Hamas or Palestinians for that matter, oh, here comes ISIS again with another attack. ISIS with another attack, and a terrorist attack plotted for New Year's Eve in California that is apparently pro-Palestine. They hate America for the most part, but all anybody wants to talk about is how they're pro-Palestine too. It's funny how that works. It's interesting how that works. So who knows? Now, when I say that, we really have no idea. Who really knows who these people are? And who trusts law enforcement at this point? And who honestly knows what these people are doing in the Philippines or where they came from, whether it's real or not? What I would say is this. At the end of the day, what we do know about these attacks and the media's attempt to spin it is that this is a war between Israel and Muslims. It is their war. It's not ours. This has nothing to do with Europeans. This has nothing to do with Christians. It has nothing to do with Americans, Australians. It has nothing to do with any of us. Okay? Whether this is orchestrated for the purpose of benefiting Israel, that's one thing, or it is merely being used to benefit Israel, and it is the result of anger at Israel. It's a distinction without a difference. Let's say these guys were organic, homegrown terrorists. Let's say it's real. Why do you think they targeted Hanukkah? It's because Muslims worldwide are watching Israel ethnically cleanse Gaza, watching them bomb Lebanon, bomb Iraq, Iran, Yemen with impunity. And I'm not saying that two wrongs make a right. I'm really not, because I don't think that the solution to killing is more killing. I don't think the solution to killing innocents is killing other innocents. I think it's equally reprehensible. It's absolutely evil. But let's not pretend like we don't know what's going on here. The people in Gaza are powerless. They have no advocate. They have no agent. Nobody is helping them. They're at Israel's mercy. Israel is absolutely slaughtering them. And then their allies go in the West and brag about it. They say there are no innocent Palestinians, that the kids are innocent. They voted for Hamas. They should all die. And we should starve them. And I'm glad that they're starving to death. And This is what people say in the West. And sooner or later, some of these Muslims, and again, I'm not justifying it. I'm describing what happens. These people snap and they say, well, how about a taste of your own medicine? I think that's evil. I think that's wicked and reprehensible. But you can see how violence begets violence. This kind of Hatfield and McCoy violence, Israelis are trying to murder all these people and they think, oh, well, we're just going to do this and there will be no pendulum swinging. There's going to be no equal and opposite reaction. Here's the problem for all of us. These people are in our countries. Muslims, pro-Israel Jews, they're coming into our countries and they're battling it out. What are we doing? We're paying for this genocide, and we have all these people living here. We're paying for the genocide, giving Israel the weapons to carry it out. Well, we have a large Muslim population. So does Australia. So does Europe. So we're paying for Israel's war of expansion there. Then the victims of this are going to create chaos and terrorist attacks in our countries where we've invited them in. And the war will continue in our homeland, and Americans will die, or Australians will die, whoever. And people say, well, you don't talk about Muslims enough. You don't blame Muslims. I am adamant that we should have none of these people here. We should have none of these foreigners here. And who brought them here in the first place? Because I recall that when in 1965, they took away the national origins quotas and they let in all these people from the third world. They let in all the barbarians. It was the Jewish lawyers, the Jewish groups that pushed the hardest. It was the American Jewish Committee. It was the American Jewish Congress. It was the ADL. It was these types of groups that were pushing this from the very beginning, calling us a melting pot. We have no identity. We don't have Christianity anymore because of the Establishment Clause. Now that the gates have been thrown open and these people are here, and now that they've brought the war with them, now everybody says, oh, it's Muslims, Muslims. I saw, for example, Finkelstein from Piers Morgan. He had a tweet last week where he said, I feel safe in London. I love diversity. They have great curry. The day after the attack in Australia, he goes, oy vey, I don't feel safe anymore. It's not safe to be in the West. In other words, when diversity was killing white people, no one gave a f***. Now that diversity is killing Jews, oh, sound the alarm, call the National Guard. I mean, that's literally how it goes. When diversity is destroying white countries, when diversity is killing white people, when diversity is erasing our heritage, hey, man, America never was white. What even is white? Hey, man, it's about freedom and everything. Hey, the purpose of Europe is for everyone to come here. Oh, now diversity is getting Zohran Mamdani elected? Oh, now diversity has all these Muslims here that hate Israel. Oh, now the diversity has brought terrorism. Now it's a problem. Oh, now we need to stop everything and only ban Muslims, not Indians, not Hispanics, not Africans. Now we need to stop everything and only ban Muslims. And then we can resume the white genocide with everybody else. Are you kidding me? And it's a sensitive subject. But everybody knows that this is the politics of mass murder. This is the politics of mass murder and how it is used to justify certain political policies. Nobody loves this stuff more than organized Jewry. Nobody loved October 7th more than Israel, because look at what they have profited from it. And even the Israelis know that. They say it about Netanyahu. Nobody loves it more than them, because then they can parlay that into increasing the war against the native population. Think about what they're saying here about Australia. So you have Muslims in the country. They're training with ISIS. Let's assume it's not a conspiracy for a moment. They're fighting the war in Gaza on the streets of Sydney. What's the solution from the government? Ban anti-Semitism on the internet and take away more guns. Not ban the diversity, not roll back the white genocide, not remigrate the people. No. Take civil liberties from white people. Keep the immigration from everywhere else and take more civil liberties from white people. That's literally the program. We fight their wars, then we take the refugees. The refugees kill us, and then we lose our civil liberties. Like this is what it feels like to be. And what I would say to Jewish people who are afraid, fortunately for you, you have somewhere you can escape to. I'm sure Jewish people are feeling scared, and I'm sorry that that is the case. I do feel sorry for them, actually. And to some extent, that is real. They do have to look over their shoulders because there is a lot of anti-Semitism, and honest to God, I sympathize with that. But what I would say to Jewish people or anyone that considers me an anti-Semite, here's the difference. If Jewish people feel unsafe in London, in Australia, in America, there's always somewhere they know they can go where they will be safe. And I'm not saying that like, so you should get out of here. I'm saying think of what that confers upon them as a group. If Australia is lost, I'm sure many Jewish Australians would be beaten up about that, but not very much because they could get on a plane and go to Israel. And they will be greeted by their own kind, where they take care of each other, look after each other, where they can be Jewish unapologetically, where they can be among their own kind. What happens to all of us? So Jewish people don't feel safe. They move to Israel happily ever after. If Australians don't feel safe, where do they go? The UK, where they came from? Well, it's happening in the UK too. Where do they go? Saxony? Well, it's happening there too. Where do they go? Norway? Where do they go? The Caucasus? There's nowhere they can go. This is what is happening. Jewish people came here as refugees and immigrants from Russia and Poland. And they came here and said, oy vey, everyone's anti-Semitic. We need to fight racism. We need to fight all barriers to entry for immigrants and minorities. So they started agitating and advocating for civil rights and mass migration and get Christianity out of the schools. They bring these people here. Then as they once freed up, after they built Israel, they used their influence to bring America to war in the Middle East. And we go to war in Afghanistan, we take their refugees who kill us. We go to war in Iraq, we take the refugees who kill us. We go to war, we're bombing Pakistan, we take the refugees, they kill us. Then, on the offhand chance they actually target Jewish people, what do? Take away civil liberties from the white people. And there's just got to be a better way than that. Take our country, take our cultural primacy, take our lives, then take away our civil liberties, and then there's not going to be a country, and then we're just screwed. Then we're just done. And that's the dynamic. They want us to blame it on Muslims. Look, we don't want large numbers of Muslims in the country. They do extremism sometimes, and of course they have a completely different religion. That being said, it's not really about that. Jewish people don't want Muslims here because Jewish people are killing them in the Middle East. And as long as they're doing that, Jewish people can't live near Muslims anywhere. That's really what it is. It's really that simple. The Jews are in a war with all Muslims. Tom Barrack said that this week. He's the envoy to Syria. He said, Israel can't be at war with all Muslims forever. So the Jews can't live with Muslims in Gaza. They can't live with them in Jordan. They can't live with them in Syria, in Lebanon. They can't live with them in Australia, here. They can't live with them anywhere. And it's because of what is happening. It's not to victim blame, but it is to say this is part of a protracted war, a total war without limitations, and it's happening on both sides. And it's happening in our country with our money, with our missiles, and it's being used to accelerate our own decline. So I would say in the fight between Jews and Muslims, I'm on team Christianity. It's called taking your own side. I'm taking my own side on this one, which is to say, Tommy Robinson, you want Muslims out, you want Indians in? Fuck you. What's the difference for anybody other than Jews? Tommy Robinson, who has never met an unsucked Jewish he hasn't fallen in love with. Tommy Robinson, forgive me for the vulgarity, he goes out and says, oh, well, it's fine if England is taken over by India because of the curry and they're great and they work hard. Oh, but Muslims, get them out. No, sorry, that doesn't work. Muslims are spreading their influence in the United Kingdom. Oh, more Jewish lawyers, more Jewish billionaires. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Pakistan and India, they're the same country, actually. They were partitioned because of religion. It's really the same thing. And they all got to go back. And whether the Middle Eastern money is coming from Israel or Qatar or Saudi Arabia or Jewish billionaires in New York, doesn't make a difference. They all must be disempowered. All of their influence must be curtailed. That's the answer. So that's my take on the situation in Australia. Again, of course, it doesn't make it right. It's a horrible tragedy. It's a tragedy when Israelis kill Palestinians in Gaza. It's a tragedy when Muslims kill random Jews in Australia. It's murder. It is a sin. It will land you in hell. And I don't believe in revenge in that way. You know, we don't believe in an eye for an eye like that in the way that you see a lot of these Muslim Islamist types, whatever that is, whether they're ops, whether they're real. We don't condone that. We don't believe in that. That being said, let's not be stupid. This is a total war between two groups of people, and it's now visited every continent where we live now. But that's that. I do want to move on. We're going to take a look. You know what? We'll save the Rob Reiner story for tomorrow. It's already late. I'm very tired. And there's a lot of stuff to get to because I do want to cover that in detail. So we're going to move on. We're going to maybe call it a little early. We'll have a shorter show. We'll take a look at our super chats. Well, you know what? We have a lot of viewers. Maybe we'll just keep going. I'll talk about Rob Reiner. I'll talk about Erica Kirk and Candace Owens tomorrow. And I will talk about, there's one other thing. I'll save that for tomorrow. Yeah, all right, I'll talk about Rob Reiner, just because I don't think it's really a massive, major story. The other big story from the weekend is this horrific murder, another horrible murder, of Rob Reiner, the Hollywood producer, and his wife. I'm sure you've heard the story. He was killed by his son, who was apparently a drug addict, and so some sort of domestic altercation. We don't know all the details, but they were stabbed to death in their house by their son. It doesn't get worse than that. And they arrested the son, and now he's on suicide watch. And there's really not much to say. Sadly, it's a story that's told all too often. Parents lose their kids to addiction. Addiction changes people. It turns them, they're not themselves, you know? And it's very tough. And the story that we hear about these people, this family, is that the parents, they didn't want to do tough love. They put their son in rehab. He didn't like it, as drug addicts do. He was lying, anything he could say to get out of it, and they went with him. And they brought him home, and then he killed them. And, you know, sometimes it ends tragically like that. I don't know that that's really a current event story. The reason I wanted to talk about it is Trump's position on this. Trump had something to say about it because, of course, Reiner was one of his enemies. And this is a story from the New York Times. It says, quote, President Trump seized on the stabbing death of Rob Reiner and his wife to make a baseless attack on the Hollywood director less than a day after reports of his killing, suggesting that Mr. Reiner's criticism of Mr. Trump may have led to his murder. The attack on Mr. Reiner so soon after his death prompted a rare backlash against the president from MAGA-aligned Republicans, some of whom urged the president to retract his comments. Mr. Trump wrote on Truth Social on Monday that Mr. Reiner's death was, quote, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. Which is just disgusting. I mean, such a gross thing to say. And it's all of Trump's biggest glazers. It's all of his biggest supporters. You ever notice all these go on Twitter and they say, you're an absolute ghoul. They're absolutely ghouls. This is absolutely ghoulish stuff. They all talk like this. I don't know if you've noticed that. This is just like an aside. I don't know that everybody's going to get this, but if you're on Twitter a lot, all these like Lomez and all the plan trusters, Patrick Casey, they all talk like this. They say absolutely ghoulish stuff. You're an absolute ghoul. They're always pearl clutching. And there's something funny about this because the left are legitimate nihilists. Legitimate death cult, nihilistic, relish in, embrace, worship violence and death. And the right winger, like these like pro-Trump people, they're always like, goodness gracious. Oh my goodness, absolutely ghoulish. It's like ghoulish. Dude, they worship the devil. They're evil. Like these are wicked people. Like they have to be destroyed. And, but they like to think of themselves like they're tough. They like to think of themselves like right-wing death squads. You know, you see them talking tough on Twitter. I saw one of these Greek statue profile pictures. He goes, we need to burn down dens of Antifa super soldiers and kill them all. And it's like, you will do nothing. You will do nothing. You are not serious. You are here's the difference. We hate the left, obviously. Like what is going on the radical left is truly evil. And so it is animating these people to do evil things. They are nihilistic, truly evil, capable of and willing to do violence, no remorse, nothing. And you get this on the right wing where you get guys like Jack Posobiec and they go, we're in a street fight. No, we're in a street fight and we need right-wing death squads and this. And then they go on Twitter and they talk about, I'm a sensitive young man. I'm a sensitive young man. I have to live a certain way. I'm a sensitive young man. And it's like, so you actually can't fight the left. You actually can't steel yourself and do what must be done and like do flamethrowers on dens of Antifa. If you're also then going and you're simping in an e-girl's DMs and saying, I'm a sensitive young man and I'm talking like a baby, like it just doesn't work. Okay. And no one takes you seriously. Right-wing chuds are and let's just say that. But anyway, so Trump says this. That's just a brief little aside because I see this kind of stuff on Twitter. People go, you're a ghoul. The left is absolutely ghoulish. And it's like, okay, so how old are you? Grow up. Like, yeah, they're evil. Okay. Anyway, but the article goes on. It says, Mr. Trump's attack brought immediate outrage, including from close allies who said the attack undercut Republicans' calls for civility after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We're going to lose points with everybody. You know, Charlie Kirk gets shot in the head and we said, we forgive the killer. And now if we make fun of a left-wing person that died, we lose all those points. All those points we accrued with those people that are killing us, we're going to lose them. That goodwill that we earned from those people that murdered Charlie Kirk and then celebrated it, that then danced and made jokes about it and made figurines of him getting his head blown off. Oh, man, we were so close to convincing them that we're really the nice guys. And now we lost that. It's such a shame. The article goes on. It says, Representative Thomas Massey wrote on social media, quote, regardless of how you felt about Rob Reiner, this is inappropriate and disrespectful discourse about a man who was brutally murdered. He said, I guess my elected GOP colleagues, the VP and the White House staff will just ignore it because they're afraid. I challenge anyone to defend it. And a lot of Republicans came out and attacked the president for this. And it goes without saying, it is distasteful. It's a nasty thing to say because this wasn't even a political guy. He was a Hollywood guy who happened to be political. He was killed by his son in a family dispute, and he died like a couple of days ago. And the president of the United States weighs in because this guy criticized him on TV and makes fun of him. It's pretty nasty. This is pretty sick stuff. I've seen Trump supporters defend it, and they say, well, we're in a war. We are in a war with the left. They're killing us, they're shooting us, and we're being babies about it. And I guess my rebuttal to that would be, Rob Reiner was not really a partisan. Rob Reiner didn't kill anybody. Tyler Robinson killed people. Antifa was plotting to kill people. Antifa has killed people. BLM has killed people. And when Trump goes and makes fun of some celebrity that died, this is more cowardice. And what I mean by that is, I get it. And on some level, I agree. We are in a war with the left. It is a knife fight. It is deadly serious, as evidenced by the fact that Trump was shot and Charlie Kirk was murdered. And this sort of thing happens all the time, and there will be more of it before this is over. And they literally want you dead. They want to eat your organs. They want to chew on your bones. They want to desecrate your corpse. This is not an exaggeration. Like, they want to absolutely destroy you. They want to mutilate you. These are evil people. And it is true that we need to face them with equal ferocity. We need to be intense. We need to want to win. And wanting to win means that the people that want to harm us, we need to want to harm them. And I get that. And Trump said this about Rob Reiner. People defend it in the spirit of that. They say, well, we're in this blood feud and whatever. Well, Charlie Kirk was murdered, and what actually happened in the aftermath of that? Was there a crackdown on Antifa? No. Was there a crackdown on the people that actually celebrated? No. Was there a crackdown on anybody that Tyler Robinson knew? We don't even know where the boyfriend is. So just stop with the LARP. People go, Trump posting on Truth Social about some dead celebrity. That's us fighting the left in a knife fight. No, it isn't. That's vanity. Trump is a sick person that if some other celebrity attacks him, Trump is going to gloat when that person gets stabbed to death by their son with their wife in their home. Because he's a sick, vain, narcissistic person. And that is what he cares about. Think about it this way. Charlie Kirk was his close personal friend. Charlie Kirk, in many ways, got Trump elected. And Charlie Kirk got shot in the head. Trump could not care less. When he was interviewed by the press, Trump said, yeah, really sad. Anyway, I'm rebuilding the East Wing, as you can see. That's when Charlie Kirk got shot by the left. That's when Charlie Kirk got shot by Antifa, and we're in a war and people are dying. That's what Trump felt in that moment. He didn't care at all. But when some celebrity that made fun of him on TV got murdered by his kid because of some other thing, because of a drug addiction, Trump is leading the charge. Oh, well, he died because of Trump derangement syndrome. And doesn't that say what Trump is really about? He's this weird boomer who comes from the 80s. He's obsessed with television. So you get some old Hollywood guy who's on TV attacking Trump as a partisan Democrat. And when that guy dies, Trump is going to gloat because that is the sort of thing that he cares about. Because he is vain, because he cares about TV still, because he cares about certain celebrities for some reason, like Rosie O'Donnell and these rivals that he's had over the years. And for him, it seems like the whole thing is about getting one over on them. Winning the election in some way is about getting Rosie O'Donnell back to Ireland and getting back at James Comey. And it's about being able to make fun of people that die, that attacked you on TV. Is Trump really in this fight against the left? Absolutely not. Trump got shot in the ear. Has there been any follow-up on that at all? Have we looked at anybody in relation to that? And Thomas Crooks and Tyler Robinson and anybody that's been involved in any of it? Absolutely not. Antifa and all their related groups, they still operate with impunity. BLM, all of it. So don't tell me now Trump made fun of a dead celebrity. This is about fighting the left. It's got nothing to do with fighting the left. Trump never fights the left. He doesn't fight anybody for that matter. And as far as I'm concerned, it's no different than this stuff about Somalians. Trump gets in front of a press conference and says, Somalians are garbage. And the SEALs clap. They go, oh, this is terrific. Okay, well, if they're so terrible, why don't you deport some of them? Oh, wait, that's hard. He'll never do it. That's difficult. That will actually require organization, focus, follow through, discipline. We're not big on those things. We're big on trash talk. We're big on vanity. We're big on legacy. We're big on vulgarity to score cheap points. And it's no different here. Okay, some celebrity that called you a Russian shill died at his house. Well, we're leading from the front on that one. Ha ha, he had Trump derangement syndrome. Too bad. Your best friend got shot in the head by the left. Yeah, gee, that's a shame. Anyway, check out the East Wing. So no, sorry, that doesn't work actually. That excuse doesn't work. You actually need to fight the left. And more than that, this is ugly rhetoric. It is ugly. It is actually evil. Forget for a moment that we are in a war. Someone gets murdered by their son. It's a horrific tragedy. This is a horrible story. And nobody deserves that. I don't care what their politics are, what they said on the internet or on television. Nobody deserves to be murdered, stabbed to death with their wife by their own son, who they tried to help, and their best friend discovers the corpses. It's despicable. And it's despicable to make fun of that. And I do think that, look, somebody like George Bush passes away of old age at the very end, and you talk about his political legacy, that's one thing. Some guy, some producer, some civilian dies at the hands of his kid. It's such a grisly situation. It is objectively awful to make fun of that. Now, if Trump were actually doing what he promised to do, you could overlook the fact that he's a douchebag. You could overlook the fact that he's vain, that he's a narcissist, that he's tactical but not strategic. You could overlook all these things if he was bringing home the goods. That was kind of the deal in 2016. You said, we don't love everything about Trump, but you know what? We're willing to accommodate. It's an acquired taste, but it's okay because he's doing all these other things. Well, what's actually the pitch now? We get nothing. We get no concessions. There are no deportations. We haven't ended one of the wars. We haven't remade the federal bureaucracy, and then he's a dick on top of it. Then it's all about his vanity and his own self-aggrandizement on top of it. What is the redeeming quality now? It's nothing. It's hollow. It's empty. So that's my take on the Rob Reiner stabbing. No one should be making fun of that. It's not funny. Who could honest to God look at that and laugh? Charlie Kirk, on the other hand, this is somebody who is my mortal enemy, who he was actively trying to suppress my career, ruin my life, all these things. He got shot by a political partisan. He wouldn't debate me, but he would debate the type of person that murdered him. Someone like me could have gotten on the show and said, I guess you should have debated me. I could have said some smart alecky thing. I wasn't even thinking that way. Because a young person got shot in public for basically no reason. And that's awful. It's awful that there are two fatherless kids. It's awful that this guy had a daughter who now has to live with this. Her brother is in prison for murdering her parents who are now dead. Her life is shattered and destroyed, and so many people's lives are destroyed. You go on True Social and make a joke about Trump derangement syndrome. It just goes to show there was never anything there. There was never a center. It was always empty. There was nothing inside there. And there's something tragic about that. Being a part of it for so long, I jumped off along the way, but you thought at one time that Trump really believed in America, believed in people, or something. I think he believes honestly in nothing. And now the only thing that's left is whatever people are projecting onto it. Whether that's they still think they're fighting the left or whatever it is, the only thing that's left is what people still believe is there, what people are projecting, and that's coming from themselves. It doesn't exist. So that's that. But I do want to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. My voice is like gone. I'm having to strain my voice here because I've been doing so much content. I never tire of it. A lot of dry winter air, endless content, no rest, no reprieve. That's fine. I exist for your amusement. And I'm happy to do it. Take the monologue and then go do whatever you want. All right, let's take a look at the super chats. Let's see what you got for me.
All right, let's get right into it. So we're going to discuss Trump and the Rob Reiner murder of Rob Reiner and his wife by allegedly his son. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to get into the conversation around white identity, discuss Tucker a bit, and then we're going to finish off with the shooting in Australia that recently happened, and kind of bring everything to an end around that topic and see where we go. Let's see where we go. But like I said, let's start with this Trump Rob Reiner situation. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. Trump's bugging. Trump is bugging. When it comes to this situation, whenever it should be very simple. And I'm glad that Nick laid into Trump like he did, because as one of Nick's hero, Trump, this stuff needs to be called out. And I think when we do not call out bad behavior, it obviously is going to legitimize the radicalness on that side. And then when that pendulum swings, obviously it's going to swing more extreme in the other direction. And a lot of people may say, I think Nick was talking about this, how, oh, that's the enemy. When they killed Charlie Kirk, they were doing this. Like all of these little kid justifiable behaviors. And the reason why I say little kid mindsets is because we learned this very young, that just because somebody else does something doesn't mean that you retaliate or do the same thing back to them. It just doesn't go like that. Isn't that the whole Old Testament versus New Testament? We're not going to get into that conversation. However, when it comes specifically to this, Trump believes that he can respond in a way that is extremely disrespectful. And it shows a lot about his personality that perhaps a lot of us ignored. Even when Nick is talking about Donald Trump's personality, I'm sitting here like, damn, how did I ignore this? And the reason why I'm asking myself, how did I ignore this? Because I wouldn't have voted for this type of person. I wouldn't have voted for a sick, vain, narcissistic person. I told y'all before this last election, I sat out the 2 previous elections because I just didn't feel, I didn't rock with any of them. I didn't rock with any of them. I didn't rock with the system. I thought that it was more detrimental to vote than to not vote. I guess I got tricked into voting this last election, and I got to take accountability for that, because I should have never, it's not like I didn't know that Trump was maybe a sick, vain, narcissistic person. I probably knew that. However, it just wasn't top of mind. I convinced myself that the fear mongering was real, and perhaps it is some fear mongering, and perhaps, a lot of these cultural issues that I made it very clear before I voted, I can't act like they don't exist. When the other side is saying that they can't define what a woman is and feeding into this mental health disorder of transgenderism and throwing it on to people. Okay, you're trans, you're one of the few people that, it's not a mental health issue. Okay, cool. But you can understand that when you're pushing this type of stuff on people, that a lot of these kids who are not well, who are very vulnerable, obviously it's going to impact them in a way and almost leech on a lot of their insecurities and create this mental health disorder. Neither here nor there. I guess what did that just make me feel better about me voting for Trump? None of it does. But when Nick is going hard at Trump and he's calling him out on all these things, I think it's a testament of us overlooking personality issues because we justify certain things from a policy standpoint. But perhaps the personality should have told us everything that we need to know about the person, because the personality is critical, not when somebody's running for the presidential election, not when you're running for the spot, but when you're in a bind, when you're actually in the spot, when you're given the power of the presidency, and now you have to pick and choose. You have to choose every single day whether you're going to stand on businesses, morals, values, principles, integrity, or you're just going to stand on, I should say, the business of whatever my donors gave me. That's who I gotta stand with based on my donor gave me this amount. Oh, they gave a lot. All right, so yeah, we're going to take care of them first, prioritizing things based on that rather than prioritizing the American people, valuing the money more than the votes. And that's what we've seen happen with Donald Trump's election. So perhaps when we have this toxic environment of this two-party system, perhaps it's working in a very ugly way for us, but it's working very smoothly for the powers that be, right? Whoever that is, the people running things, the people controlling the puppet strings, playing us like a game of chess. These people, it's working very beautifully for. It's ugly for us because when we only have 2 candidates and Donald Trump can get up here and say these things,
what's that going to ultimately going to do? A lot of people will lean into it. A lot of people will embrace it. A lot of people will give excuses for it. And then all it does is send the pendulum back the other way, swinging even harder than it was before. And that's when we have a lot of these issues now. That's why we can't just have a common sense approach to politics. That's why we can't just have a common sense candidate. Who's going to be the common sense candidate? We thought that RFK was it in certain ways, but does anybody think that RFK Jr. is going to run for president and him not be compromised by his relationship with Israel, him not doing a lot of the same things that we're calling Donald Trump out for doing? I don't know. Well, perhaps we'll wait and see. Perhaps we won't. But making this death somebody that it doesn't even matter what they're in politics or whether or not they're in politics. Bro, somebody just died and you're up here talking about Trump derangement syndrome and referring to yourself in the third person. Like, this just seems wild. Trump is making not only himself look bad, but he's making a whole lot of us look bad. Almost like, damn, how could y'all even vote for this guy? And Nick brought up a point in saying, like, if he was actually if he was accomplishing the things that he set out to do and that people voted for him, then perhaps we could overlook this, or perhaps we don't have to, highlight this as such a big problem. But in all actuality, that's part of the problem as well. That's part of the problem. Like, oh, when somebody's delivering on the things that I asked them to deliver on, I don't care about their personality. And perhaps that is the way that we should go, but it's not realistic perhaps for us to look at it like that, because ultimately somebody's going to be judged when they're confronted with a difficult choice, not whether or not, not on the days where they could just, oh yeah, I told y'all I was going to do this, so yeah, I'm just doing it. It's when I told y'all I was going to do something and ran a campaign based on this. However, these people who are giving me a whole lot of money and are flexing their leverage in various ways, I also have to appease them. So now, or I think I have to appease them. So now what do I end up doing? And that's when that personality of who that person is comes out. That's when their integrity, their moral compass, all these different things comes out. All right, so let's move on. Talked about the personality issues. All right, so then moving on. Yeah, so this whole identity, like the white nationalism, whatever it is that people are pushing for right now, obviously you can tell that I'm not 100% on board with what Nick Fuentes is speaking about. I just don't think that it works. But let me kind of have the discussion and conversation with y'all, and then maybe I'll have a different opinion at the end, or maybe, you'll have a different opinion. Either way, it doesn't matter. Just want to have the conversation. Let's be able to process it in an honest way, and then we'll go from there. But before we get into that, Nick mentioned a few things about housing prices, white people, the white race being genocided. He mentioned that we're living in Africa, Middle East, India. We're being beat up and murdered in the streets. They want us gone. Everything that I'm hearing from Nick, it sounds like a black nationalist. It sounds like a freedom fighter. It sounds like somebody from the civil rights movement trying to wake black people up. And perhaps this is what, just a part of the cycle where Nick feels that white people need to be woken up. But it's all pushing the same things. And the reason why I said moving in this direction of identity politics and identity tribalism, perhaps is the best way to call it, or to refer to it, is that it just doesn't work. Now, what do I mean when I say it just doesn't work? Do I mean that if you have a particular group and they just focus on themselves and they just work within their group and they're very united, they circulate their money within that group, they're very intentional, they support each other, do I not think that they'll be successful? Absolutely. But when I say whether or not it'll work, I'm basing it on whether or not it aligns with producing the goal that I have. My goal may be totally different than Nick's. All of our goals may be different, but based on my goal of wanting to bring humanity together, wanting to achieve this greater peace that we talk about from time to time that a lot of people may feel is far-fetched, this doesn't align with that for me. So Tucker has his own reasons for saying, white identity politics are wrong. And a lot of other people have said this as well. But Nick still believes that this can perhaps be true, but he's going to lean into choosing his side. He says that a lot of these other cultures have been doing this for a very long time. And I'm not even saying that he's wrong. I'm not saying that he's wrong. And I'm getting ready to go off script for a little bit. So let me just kind of get my thoughts together. But the reason why I don't think that he's wrong, and maybe I should actually stay to the script. Let me stick to the script. But what Nick, I would say, isn't taken into account, perhaps, when he talks about the Black issues, when he talks about these things, speaking specifically to Black people, is that there's a lot of Black people that don't buy into just working with Black people, that don't buy into, oh yeah, all Black everything. I'm rooting for everybody Black, blackity black, blackity black. There's a whole lot of Black people that don't buy into Black people embracing the democratic, liberal victimhood mindset and us wanting, handouts, and whether it's through social programs or even to the point where a lot of people are like, yo, and more people probably just don't care because they don't think that reparations are realistic. But there's others that I actually believe, let me not speak for others, I actually believe that it'll be extremely detrimental to our communities, depending on how you give what is it going to be, money or whatever form of reparations out. I think that it could be very dangerous and irresponsible. No different than, I always think about my dad thinking about if he won the lottery. He said one of the reasons why he stopped playing the lottery is because when you win, say if you win at an age where now you have to give money to your kids, let's say when my brother and I were younger, giving a young person who may not be mature enough to understand how money works, may not be mature enough to understand life, can be very dangerous. So what does this have to do with reparations for Black people? By giving Black people handouts, I think that it'll just widen the gap, because what are Black people going to do? The same thing that people did when we got the money during the pandemic. That was supposed to, stimulate, right? That stimmy check is supposed to stimulate the economy. Well, it'll stimulate the economy, but it's not going to stimulate Black people. All it's going to do, that money, literally, there probably wouldn't be a group that will stimulate the economy any better than if they gave reparations in cash to Black people. That would be a true, white people should think, especially if you got a business. Matter of fact, any American should thank Black people when it comes to if they were given reparations, because all they would do is invest it back into America, invest it back into the American economy, because we don't have the mental when it comes to financial literacy to even understand how to use money. So when you have all these resources, when you have access to money, if you're just giving them reparations in the form of cash, obviously that can create certain issues. So I'm not sitting here even having the conversation of whether or not it's deserved or not deserved. You can make an argument for both. And I don't understand how people can't understand for both. Clearly, yeah, you could justify reparations. We've given reparations to people who we did less than. Jewish people get reparations for the Holocaust. And, obviously we had less of a role than we did in that, than slavery being a foundational pillar when it comes to America. Now, you can also rationalize saying that, yo, forget that. We conquered y'all. We brought y'all here. Y'all were slaves. Y'all lucky that we allowing y'all to stay and live the life that y'all live just like everybody else. We gave y'all the right. You may have that outlook. You may say, yo, y'all lost. You don't get any participation awards for this. So you can make an argument for both. Simple. However, I look at the results of it. How is it going to impact people? So when Nick has this mindset that I say reminds me of a very Black, nationalist approach to things, Nick may be right as far as this particular issue solving a lot of the issues that Nick may complain about, whether that Tucker may call out, whether it's, not being able to afford to live because the lack of resources in America, looking out for everybody else rather than looking out for Americans. Nick may have a point in American white Christians or white people, I'm sure he's referring to white Christians coming together and uniting, having a different level of camaraderie than has previously been. There may be a lot of positives that come from that, but ultimately it just doesn't align with the goal that I'm looking for. Like, whatever you have something that is exclusive of particular groups or inclusive simply just based on whatever race you are, it just doesn't align with I get it. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not calling Nick Fuentes a bad person for that. I get that. I've had that mindset before. This is what I'm saying. It just didn't, for me, it just didn't feel as good as my intent now align with my purpose of just like, yo, I want to be able to rock out with everybody. I don't want a movement that's identified that people identify with the movement based on racial identity. I want a movement that people are unifying and uniting, and you can identify us based on how we move throughout the world and society, how we move through it doesn't have to be throughout the world, through our individual communities, how we help each other, how we value merit over anything else, how we value integrity, all these different things, to where people can live a particular way and say like, yo, you remind me of like, that's that OG culture. Oh, that's that OG culture y'all are part of. We talked earlier, not interested in the religion, anything like. We just want to have a particular culture aligned with, our group, whatever that may be. And that just based on the golden rule of treating others the way we want to be treated and bringing people together. Common sense. When there's common sense, when there's a certain level of decency, when there's just respect, amongst all groups, and there's not all the fear-based, fear-mongering, all this type of stuff that comes with us not having an understanding or us not knowing about that particular group or culture, I think that it just presents certain issues, and that will ultimately just end up in this cycle. We'll end up in this cycle. And perhaps I should be more empathetic. I don't think sympathetic, but more empathetic of white Americans and their struggle. And this is why I'll say it. This may come across totally crazy. I'm not gonna cut it. So y'all just gonna get it as I'm processing it in my mind. But something that I was thinking about, did I write it down so it'll be more clear? Just brief notes. But I have a question. So is what makes America so great based on white people taking a backseat to everyone else? Because I'm trying to put myself in Nick's shoes and understand his perspective and the perspective that he may represent as far as disaffected young white men. And I ask myself that question, is what makes America so great? Is it based on white people taking a backseat to everyone else? And why do I say that? Look at America. What do you think about America? You think of America as a melting pot. You think of America as all these different cultures coming together. That's what you think about. America opened its arms to all different types of people. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's just in America's best interest. They brought this group in to provide, the labor. They brought this group into it. And even if that was the case, where you're bringing in different people to help elevate the country, now, do I look at it from a standpoint and say, well, you use the people and allow them to come in, so, now you can kind of understand that America maybe has taken a different shape, or it looks a little bit different. But all those differences in culture and bringing in different people, that's what has allowed America to elevate in ways that other countries haven't been able to elevate. That's totally understandable. I think that that's actually very true. Or perhaps not a true or false thing, but I would align with that type of viewpoint. I want us to have that amount of grace as we're looking at the situation. And then the next question that I ask, are we just at the point where whites have allowed too much entitlement amongst a lot of these other groups to where the relationship just wasn't understood? Have you ever worked a job where you think, let's say you're working with a friend, or you come into a very nice environment where everybody just seems to be carefree, but there's also an understanding there that, oh no, you have to work your butt off. And the understanding is the people that get a lot of their work done either after hours or before work or when they go home, whatever, then they can come to the office and make it more of a enjoyable environment and stuff like that. But everybody else, you got to get to work. There's just a misunderstanding as far as the work that I think that I'm supposed to be doing from my outlook and what I'm actually getting paid to do. It's just the relationship wasn't defined. It wasn't defined that, hey, you're only going to be here while it makes sense for us. And then if it ever doesn't make sense, then we're going to fire you. Or we're going to, prevent other people that may provide what you provide to us. So let me kind of break it down. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but let me break it down a little bit more specifically regarding this situation. Perhaps white people are just saying yo, we've been open arms with all of this stuff, allowed people to come in and build the country. However, now the direction of where the country is going, we got to stop. We got to stop at this point. We got to stop. And hey, this is the problem. we're eventually going to become the minority. And even if people don't like you saying that, I think there's a certain level of respect that people will, that the respect will go with the understanding or vice versa. We don't know whichever one comes first. But I think that people, even if they don't like that, they can respect that. I can respect somebody saying like, hey, man, if you had a country and you were the majority and you see this moving in a different direction, you see your culture changing, the very culture that you created and amongst other people as well, but the culture that you were in control of, now you're no longer going to be in control of it. Anybody can understand how people would have the mindset of a Nick Fuentes. People don't like to give up control. We don't like to give control up in our, I don't even want to disrespect anybody's job or anything, but a minimal, there's no minimal job out here, but we don't like to give up power in our own individual lives. So we can understand how if I'm running a country, what that country looks like, the culture of that country, that can be threatening, especially when you have a group of people that's getting outpaced so quickly like white people are in America and perhaps around the world. So we can understand that. Nick says that white people need to get a lot stronger. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. And I think when he's saying this, he's more so saying like, yo, stop complaining or stop. And I'm just perhaps speculating on what he means. But to me, it comes across as we need to figure out for ourselves how to put ourselves in a better situation, how to improve the lives, how to improve the conditions that we may be facing as far as, us feeling like we're being genocided or us just not having as many babies. Address those issues because you can't rely on the government to address them. Perhaps the government benefits from all of this, from white people becoming the minority. Maybe there's a lot of people that will benefit from that. Guess we'll have to sit back and see. But my point is that when we just turn off the argument switch and just turn on an understanding switch, I think it allows us to see why people are seeing things a certain way and how they can get to these conclusions. Because why did I start off earlier saying that everything that Nick's saying sounds like a black nationalist? It's just a cycle. You put anybody in a lot of these positions where you switch out black people for white people or switch out this group for that group. If you put yourself in the shoes of somebody else, it allows you to see things from their perspective that perhaps you otherwise wouldn't have been able to see. But this is why I say this is always going to be the cycle. When it comes to tribalism and you're only identifying with your group, it's just instant competition, and the competition is based on the tribe. So when we're aligning ourselves based on our tribe, based on skin color, based on religion, now we're creating competition, aka what always teeters on that thin line of war amongst Americans, amongst different groups throughout society across the world, around the world. So I'm not saying that Nick's wrong as far as what his goals are, but I'm just highlighting like my goals are a little bit different. And me seeing it from that perspective and not waiting I didn't need white people to be calling out when I started calling out Black Lives Matter. I didn't call it out because of white people. I didn't call it out because that was the fad of the cycle. No, I was in that mindset, and I realized like, nah, this ain't, like, I grew up with tremendous, in a very diverse town with some tremendous friends that if I embraced a lot of these mindsets or embraced the mindset that I was embracing at that particular time when it was all black this, all black that, I was losing a whole bunch of people that really cared about me. And that really, and I was losing a lot of those people that cared about me for who? To stand up for who? Should I just assume because they got the same skin color that they care about me more? And it was just creating a lot of awkward situations. And I don't care about an awkward situation, but when it's an awkward situation, as far as like, yo, like we're friends, like why are we allowing this to rift or put a rift in our relationship, And to me, it downplayed a lot of the relationships that I do have. Like I always think of my big bro Jim Dory. I'm like, I'm gonna prioritize somebody else in my life over my big bro Jim Dory. And the things that he's done, supported me, been my big bro simply because somebody else is black. Yeah. That's when I looked at it from that standpoint, that's all it took. I never looked back. I'm like, oh, nah. And it was right in front of my face the entire time, but I just couldn't see it at that particular time. I saw it when I saw it. And that's for a lot of us. We can't, we love everybody to see the same way at the same exact time and to learn the same way, but it just doesn't always work like that. It just doesn't always work like that. So I got to give grace across the board, because if I don't give grace, I don't have to do anything, but I'm giving grace across the board because I've been in the same position on the other end. I can understand it. I may not like it or may not think that it's going to lead ultimately in a different direction, but I didn't like when I was thinking that way, when people, said things against my current thought process. I had to figure it out for my own. I had to figure it out on my own. But I'm glad that I did figure out at least to get to this point, and now I'm trying to figure out and get to the next point. But let me, I'm already talking y'all ears off. Let me not spend too much time. One of the things Nick highlighted is he said that he doesn't believe he needs security because the people are with him. I thought that this was dope. This was funny to me. And he said, are they with Ben Shapiro? Can he walk the streets without getting punched in the face or heckled? And this reminds me of Mike Tyson always talking about Floyd Mayweather, how Floyd Mayweather calls himself the best ever, TBE, compared to the GOAT. And he says that he's number one. Floyd Mayweather makes it clear. And if I was Floyd, matter of fact, I think Floyd is the best boxer of all time, the greatest of all time. And sometimes I look at great different than best, but for this conversation, I look at Floyd as the best boxer of all time. However, Mike Tyson always says, how can you be the greatest when you can't even walk down the street without security? The people don't love you. The people don't love you. Mike Tyson walked down the street, get love. Muhammad Ali walked down the street, get love. I don't think he was hiring all this security and stuff. Maybe at a certain point, he probably had the fruit of Islam, but y'all understand the point that I'm trying to make. So I thought that was a funny thing. But let's get into the last topic that we'll cover, the Bondi Beach situation, shooting, I should say, not situation, but the Bondi Beach shooting. I believe Nick said that apparently this person first got on the radar about 6 years ago of the Australian government, or I don't know, I think they were talking about the Australian government, their federal agency. And let me move on. Nick says that Nick says that this is happening in places where the government is at war with white people. He said that these type of situations in Australia and America, these situations are occurring because the government is at war with the people, with white people. I'm sorry. So once again, that's kind of I don't need to go back to the conversation that we had before, but this is we've talked about this before. And, when you have a government that seems to be not working in your best interest or favorable for you and people that may fall into your category, whatever, however you're defining those categories, I can get why that would be your mindset. You look at places like Australia, you look at different places in the UK or in Europe, a lot of these situations, I can see why Nick would look at it and, say that, because I'm just speculating. I don't know if this is what Nick is meaning with a lot of this stuff. And I don't know if I caught the entire, I caught the entire thing, but what I'm saying as far as caught the entire message of what he was trying to say. But if you have a government that is criticizing, let's say, white people, when they're overly critical of white people, what mindset does that put other people in? Now you're saying like, oh, you're feeding into the victimhood of that other person. You're feeding into the entitlement of that other group. So now that group, they feel entitled. They're asking for more. They're criticizing the government as well. So you see all these type of things where it does embolden and empower other groups of people when the government is criticizing the white American group that largely founded these different countries that we're discussing. So, yeah. So let's move. I think, did this one go right into, so we're talking about the shootings. And at first I thought Nick said that Israel used this as an opportunity to violate the ceasefire. I don't think that I heard that correctly. But I did look up what just happened over the weekend. So I guess there was somebody, one of the leaders in Hamas was killed, and that apparently violated the ceasefire. So it's being reported that the White House had a stern message to Netanyahu. And I don't know if this is a direct quote or whatever, but it's in quotes. And I forget the exact article that I got it from. It wasn't the Axios article. I forget the exact article. I can reference it. But pretty much the message was, if you want to ruin your reputation and show that you don't abide by agreements, be our guest. But we won't allow you to ruin President Trump's reputation after he brokered the deal in Gaza. This is according to The Official. So who knows how official it is. But once again, I'll read it. If you want to ruin, this is to Bibi Netanyahu in Israel. If you want to ruin your reputation and show that you don't abide by agreements, be our guest, but we won't allow you to ruin President Trump's reputation after he brokered the deal in Gaza, according to The Official. People are sick of this, bro, because you're making our leader look very bad. And just like what Trump said going at war, or just like what Nick was saying, you know, these countries, they talk about the white Americans and it emboldens everybody else. Yo, we can't have our president just being disrespected like this and his word not mean anything, because not only could that put us in some dangerous situations, especially with us always playing these games and aligning ourselves with Israel and everything that they do in that region, but this could lead to some other areas as well. Perhaps we're already seeing the results of this when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, where it doesn't seem like the leadership, especially when it comes to Putin, is taking anything that Donald Trump says seriously. So obviously that's going to be a problem for us. So let me move on. Let's and Nick said violence begets violence, and he referred to the Hatfield and McCoys. So who was it that played in that Hatfield and McCoys? Wasn't it who played in Yellowstone? How am I forgetting? Hold on, Hatfields and McCoys. I want y'all to check out this. I was impressed with Nick bringing up this and having that. What's his name? How am I forgetting? Kevin Costner. Yeah, so y'all check out. I think it came out in 2012. I think this is the movie that, it comes on from time to time. Or actually, it's not a movie. I believe it's actually a TV series. But y'all check that out. But it's just violence and violence. It's like Game of Thrones. It's like that scene in Game of Thrones where I forget the two ladies are talking. One is the queen, Rhaenyra and Rhaenys, I believe, are talking. And she's like, one of them is not the queen, the other one, the aunt, I believe, the one who's married to the black guy. She says that it gets to a point in war where people forget who started it. It doesn't even matter. Who started it is insignificant. All that matters is getting the next get back. Who's going to one up the other person? So violence, this is why I'm against it. This is why I'm against it. And this is why I'm also glad that Nick made it very clear, once again, as he always does, based on the shows that I watch. I watch all the shows, but he always makes it so like, hey, I'm not calling for violence. I'm not calling for violence. And, sometimes when I'm listening, I'm like, but bro, that there's nothing wrong with being passionate. There's nothing wrong with being passionate and calling out certain things. And then reiterating, saying like, hey, this is not a call for violence. So I'm appreciative of that as well. I think the last note that I pointed out when it comes to Nick is he made this comment about Jewish people, saying that Jewish people don't want Muslims in America because they're killing them in Palestine and the Middle East. So he believes that it's their treatment in all these other areas why Jewish people don't want, Muslims here. And Nick made it a point to say that, it's not like just less Muslims and more Indians are okay. He says that Pakistan, India, it's the same thing to America. I'm sure they look at it differently. I'm sure that, the Hindus look at things differently than the Muslims, or even the Hindu Muslims compared to the Hindu Muslims, the Hindu Indians compared to the Muslim Indians. But, I'm not well-versed in that particular area. So I don't really have much to say on that. And on that note, let me actually wrap it up because I've already been talking y'all heads off for long enough. So as always, like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. We control the algorithm. We never let the algorithm control us. Y'all are greatly appreciated. And what I always ask, if you're feeling real generous, leave a comment. Let us know exactly what we're doing. Provide some more context. Y'all know I try to enter with as much objectivity as possible, but sometimes the biases come into play and definitely impact that. So y'all let me know where I may be missing or just where you can add some context or add whatever other value that you may want to add. And on that note, I shall let y'all go. I'll see y'all soon.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM fought that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.